Hello, people of the internet. How many times have you been in the middle of a project only to have your hardware start to fail, plugins not working the way they should, the software isn't doing what it needs to be doing, the timeline isn't the way it needs to be? How many times have you been in the middle of a project only to start wasting your time complaining with coworkers? You're standing around, you guys are all complaining about something. You can't figure out the problem. So you guys, instead of looking to solve the problem, you guys are actually just talking about the problem. So you're constantly like, oh, this doesn't work. I don't know why this doesn't work. And man, I wish this would work. And man, I wish this timeline was different and whatever. But instead of actually like trying to solve the problem, you're just standing around wasting your time. How many times have you been in that situation? I find that I've been in that situation a lot, especially lately. I've been finding things don't work the way that I would assume they would work. They don't work the same way in production as they do in my tests when I'm playing around. That I've talked about in some of my other videos, you know, how I brainstorm and how I do these things. And I'll brainstorm, I'll figure out some stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a great solution. And then when I go into production, it falls completely apart. Like the single frame looks awesome. And then when I start actually animating the thing, it just completely falls apart. And man, that's frustrating. I couldn't tell you how like crushing it is when you're sitting in the middle of a production. You're hitting go and you're doing these things in your software or whatever, and then you wait, and then you have to wait, and then it breaks, and then the renders don't come out, and then you have to problem solve, and then you're there for hours and hours and hours, literally not doing anything. That is infuriating at times. So how do you handle that situation? Do you just stand around and complain about the situation? I know that is my default. I know I want to just stand around and complain and be upset about the situation and just tell other people that I'm upset instead of sitting down on the computer and trying to solve the problem. Sometimes it is okay to get off the computer, walk around, get out of the building, go to lunch, go take a break or something, because maybe the solution will come to you. But it's not, in my opinion, I don't think it's it's a benefit to you or your coworkers for you to sit around and just complain instead of sitting down on the computer, putting your headphones on and just grinding it out until you can solve the problem. Like I've discussed in a couple of the other videos, there's always a solution. There's always a solution to every single problem. So if you can sit down and just maybe start from scratch, I know that's the hardest thing to do. Like I've been working for weeks on a rig and I'm working for weeks and I'm like, this is great. This is going to be awesome. And then it falls apart. And so what do? I spend days and days and days problem solving the thing that I had made instead of just going, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Maybe I need to approach it differently and build something else or make something else or look at it differently. I go down this rabbit hole of just constantly trying to fix the thing that might not be fixable. I heard this phrase from an old coworker a long time ago that if you can't solve the problem in 5 minutes, move on. And that is so true. Like if you can't solve the problem at least within a half an hour, you need to think about it differently. Maybe you need to adjust what you're doing, scratch what you were doing, and I get it, you lost a lot of time, and do something else. But the first step is to stop standing around complaining or complaining in your own mind and just not actually getting in the middle of this stuff and just doing it. You got to get in the weeds sometimes to take care of these problems instead of standing around, because standing around isn't really going to solve the problem. Now, if you're standing around and you're talking with coworkers about the issue and you guys are brainstorming ideas to fix it, that's something different. But all too often I see people standing around and just complaining. Like this doesn't work and that doesn't work and this and that and whatever. Instead of actually coming up with solutions to solve the problem, they're just complaining about the issue. I don't think that's a benefit to anybody. I get it. We have issues and we got to blow off steam sometimes, but that takes us down a path that's non-productive. And we have things to do. And the way that you help with your time management, which is something we'll talk later about, is really making sure that you buckle down those times that really could rabbit hole you for hours. I mean, you can stand around for hours and talk about things that don't work. No matter how good it is, wherever you are, there's always something that doesn't work right? So how are you going to solve that issue? I know me, once I realize it, it takes me a minute. Once I realize that I'm doing something like that, I have to make sure that I put myself in check, either step out of the office by myself, take time, take a breather, go sit back down on the computer and start grinding it out. And though it might not work in the schedule I was thinking, maybe I have to stay later that night to solve the problem, but it gives me a chance to take a breather, to sit back down on the computer and to solve that problem. And so I think when you look at these kind of things and you realize that you're in that middle of that situation, maybe take a breath, walk out of the situation, go take a breath by yourself, walk around, catch your thoughts, come back, sit down and start grinding it out. And if you do have to scratch it, come to terms with that sooner than later. Come to terms with scratching that thing, that problem, that issue, whatever, maybe a different software, maybe a different plugin or whatever, scratch it and go to something else. Because the longer you sit in that, your deadline isn't changing. So the longer you sit in that, the less time you're going to have to do the things you need to do on the project. I hope that's a help. I hope that at least gives you a little bit of insight of how some of my days go. We all have those days. And this past week has been very hard. But we're going to get through it. And we're going to create some really, really amazing work. So hopefully I'll hear from you guys. Let me know how some of the things that you guys might be going through, or some of the things you guys might need some help with, or maybe post up your work. I'd love to see some of that stuff too. But like, comments, share, subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. And I will see you guys in the next video.